Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and in today's video let's fly transatlantic. We are sitting in the Boeing business jet, the only true long-haul transatlantic aircraft that we currently have for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Obviously it is a business jet, and the way you get this one long haul is by inserting additional tanks into the fuselage, but that shall not be the topic for today's video. The topic for today's video is how are we going to mark all our transatlantic and ETOPS specific waypoints along our flight plan. Now, that is something that I see a lot of flight simulators don't really do correctly, so here is how we do it in the real world. Now, many flight simulators do just like to add those range rings and use those as ETOPS waypoints. While that is correct for some airlines, it is not correct for most. So let's first of all have a look at what most flight simulators do and discuss some basic advantages and disadvantages of that technique. Then we'll discuss why that technique does not work with a lot of aircraft. And finally, we are going to have a look at how to do it correctly and realistically, and how to do it on the PMDG. And if you just noticed I said correct and realistic and PMDG separate, that is because the PMDG 737 is missing one vital feature that I really hope is going to be added with a future update, and that I really hope is going to be present in the 777, as it is basically used on every ETOPS flight. Now let's go ahead and have a look into some basics. So we are flying from Shannon over to Boston today, and if we have a look at our route, then this is basically what it looks like. Now we are outside the 60-minute range from a suitable airport on parts of this flight, and therefore we do require an ETOPS flight. Now let's go ahead and have a look into how that is going to be done. When we have a look at our flight plan, by the way, since I do keep getting these questions, I am using the Lufthansa format here on SimBrief. If we have a look at the flight plan and scroll down a little bit, then we can find some ETOPS information in here, in the ETOPS summary section. Now, if we take a close look, we can see we've got our ETOPS entry point, our exit point, and then we have equal time points. Now, let's go ahead and have a look at what most flight simulators like to do, because they do like to see fancy things on their navigation display. Now, that is entering range arcs. Now, what you do for this is you basically take the airport, so in this case Echo India Kilo November, you put that in here, and then you enter the distance, so /429 for Boeing 737 in here, and that basically draws you the range in which you not flying ETOPS and outside which you are flying ETOPS. Now, the advantage of this technique is to see visualized where your ETOPS range begins, and to be able to draw several segments like that. Now, another for example over here would be to take Keflavik Airport, which is going to be the next suitable, enter 429 once again on the rings, and now you can see that over here we got a very tiny ETOPS segment, and then after that we are actually going ETOPS on the North Atlantic. Now, let's talk about why this is not a really good technique to use. Well, as you can see in the 737, there is no problem entering all those ranges. However, first of all, why would you use those ranges? Now, in my opinion, it is much better to use the fix page in order to draw your ETOPS alternates on there. Be aware that only because we're entering the range arc over here, that the airport this is based on is just the closest to which we could, technically speaking, divert. But it must not necessarily be the best one. Just to give you an example, we are using Knock over here with it, which is not really a excellent equipped airport. So you could, for example, just go ahead and use Dublin instead, and then we could no longer draw that arc, and for that reason that is rather unpractical. Another point, however, is the inability to enter unlimited distances. So the 737 is a rather capable plane in terms of those range arcs, but if you're flying, for example, Airbus A320 aircraft, then you're going to be limited at 256 nautical miles maximum range for your arc, and that is obviously not suitable for this technique. Therefore, I would recommend to use a different technique to visualize your ETOPS waypoints on your navigation display. Now, let's talk about how we would do this in the real world, and we're going to remove those airports right here, right now. So how would we do this in the real world then? In the real world, you'd go on init reference, index, nav data, and in here you would enter custom waypoints. Now, custom waypoints do have a certain naming convention. For example, the first ETOPS entry point would be Echo Echo Papa 1, so ETOPS entry point 1. And then you would have Echo X-ray Papa 1 for ETOPS exit point 1. And if you've got a second ETOPS segment, then EEP2, EXP2, and so on. And also you'd have the equal time points, which we would, due to the limit of the maximum amount of characters possible, we would just use the airport IATA codes then. So for example, down here for Keflavik to Goose Bay, you'd use Kilo Echo Foxtrot, Yankee Yankee Romeo as a waypoint name. And then you'd know this is the equal time point between Keflavik and Goose Bay. Right, so that much about how you would do these things in the real world. Unfortunately, in the PMDG we cannot do this, because the way this works in the real world is you enter a waypoint ident that doesn't exist in the database, like that, and if the waypoint doesn't exist, it would open a field over here to enter the coordinates of that waypoint to define where it exists. Unfortunately, in the PMDG this is not possible, as you can see, so for that reason we gotta help ourselves with a different technique. Now, what you can do in the PMDG is to use the lex page. However, here comes the first gotcha. In the real world, once you enter the oceanic airspace, Shanwick or Gander are going to request a copy of your FMS flight plan through datalink, and they cross-check that the waypoints you entered actually reflect your transatlantic clearance. And for this reason we cannot enter anything in here. But there is a trick. So if you go towards the very end of the lex page, so this is the last page after the missed approach right now, and then enter a custom waypoint over here, including a discontinuity prior. That is going to work like that. You can create custom waypoints, and then you can use the fix page in order to mark those waypoints. Now, obviously, you could just enter them in the fix page straight away, could you? Well, almost. In the 737, unfortunately, this is not possible. In other Boeing aircraft, like the 777, for example, however, it is possible. So in the 777, you could do this directly over the fix page. In the 737, we gotta help ourselves with a trick from the lex page, and here is how to do it. So we're going to start with the ETOPS entry point that's located at 5659.3 north and 1956.20 west. So we just enter this basically using exactly this format over here, except that we leave out the last 0 behind the decimal. So we're going to do N5659.3, N5659.3, and then west is going to be 01956.2. So 01956.2. Right. We put that in here, and you can see this now creates a custom waypoint. Unfortunately, we cannot give this a name straight away, but we can at least create the custom point like this. Now, in order not to mess up your actual missed approach, you want to create a flight plan discontinuity after the last waypoint. The way to do this is you enter any random waypoint, let's say for example triple alpha, put that in here prior to the waypoint you created, and that's going to create the discontinuity in here. Now what you can do is you hit delete, and to delete that triple alpha again, and now you've got a discontinuity ahead of this waypoint. Hit execute, and like that we have now created a custom waypoint, which we can now see on the flight plan over here. Now this happens to coincide with a position of 20 west almost, but we have now created that waypoint. Like that, we can also create the other ETOPS waypoint, for example, our equal time point, which is going to be 5648.4. So N5648.4. And the west coordinate is going to be 4113.9. So 4113.9. And that's going to become waypoint 4. And then we can do our exit point as well, which is going to be 5515.9. And the west coordinate is going to be 4855.4. So pretty much like this. And now our 3 ETOPS waypoints are created. Hit execute to be sure that they actually go right into the database. In the real world you wouldn't need to execute this in order to create them, but in the PMDG better safe than sorry. Now what we do is we take those waypoints, so copy waypoint 3 and put it straight into the fix page. Likewise, we're going to do waypoint number 4, which is going to be on fix page 2. And lastly, we're going to take waypoint 5 that we created here, and we're going to put that in fix page number 3. Alright, and like that, you can see we now have inserted those waypoints. Now what you can do is you can go back ahead to the next page. You can delete them because they're now in the working memory of the FMS. Execute that, and here we go. Now we still got those waypoints in the fix page. Now, let's talk about why I'm not a big fan of those rings. Basically, because we do need the fix page for something else. And this is now our ETOPS alternates. So, what we're going to do is as follows. We do want some visual markings on our nav display as to where the next closest alternate is located. And the way we're going to do this is through the fix page. So basically your flight plan gives you your planning alternates, but you might not necessarily want to use those. You can always use different airports, so you can pick any airport you want as a suitable ETOPS alternate. Remember, once you're airborne, the planning criteria does not apply anymore, so you can basically just choose any airport where you can legally land, so where the weather is above the landing minimum. Now, today, if we have a look at the route as it is over here, then obviously we do have Ireland down here, then we do have Iceland up here, and so back and so forth. So today we do have a legal ETOPS alternate for our planning of Keflavik, and then we got Goose Bay. Now, Keflavik up here, and nothing planned in Ireland though. So what I would probably prefer, since we departed Ireland, is an immediate turn back towards Ireland in case it happens. So for that reason, let's just say that we do want to plan Shannon, which is a very commonly used ETOPS alternate and well equipped for that. So we're going to enter Shannon down here. And in order to visualize on our nav display exactly where Shannon is, what we can do is we can just enter a couple of radials. So we can see currently we're on 320 radial outbound, 200 miles apart. So let's enter radial 320 in here, and you can see we now got that green line. Now we're just going to enter another radial 10 degrees less, so for example 310. And you can see you've now drawn that little arc over here, which tells you like, yeah, just fly in the middle of that arc, and then you're going directly towards your ETOPS alternate. Now that is only one of many possible techniques of marking your ETOPS alternates, but all of those techniques are basically going to involve using the fix page, and for that reason, using the fix page in order to mark your ETOPS area and filling up all the pages you have available is probably not a good idea. Remember that in many aircraft, you might only have 2 fix pages available. This is, for example, the case in a lot of Airbus aircraft, and in the 737, for example, it's optional as well. Or in the 777, you only have 4 fix pages available, and not 6 as we have over here. So you want to keep yourself a little bit of distance in the fix page in order to be able to mark certain things in here. Now, this is basically going to conclude today's video. I do hope that you found this one interesting and that you learned something today. If it did, then be sure to leave a comment below and let me know what you think about my reasoning for not using those range arcs on the nav display in order to mark your ETOPS airports. I do hope you found this one interesting. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment to let me know what you think about it, and subscribe to the channel if you're up for more. Finally, if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. But for now, I would just like to say thank you very much for watching, hope that you've enjoyed it, and see you all again on the next one.